The fall of empires is never as interesting as the rise of empires, which is why I'm going to condense the fall of the once mighty Chola Empire into 30 seconds. After the death of Rajendra Chola, the man who conquered all of this land, his three sons took over the throne one after the other rather quickly. By 1070, 2 out of 3 of his sons had died, and the third was on his deathbed without any heirs. This led to a civil war where the king of Eastern Chalukya Empire and the grandson of Rajendra Chola, by the way of his daughter, won and took the throne. His name was Kotulunga. He revitalized the Chola Empire and made it rich once more, and he brought peace to the empire. How did he do that? Well, he got rid of Sri Lanka out of his territory and used the resources he saved from letting it go to refocus all of his efforts onto the mainland. He reigned for 60 years of very prosperous times. What followed was 160 years of one king losing territory after another. And you know, an empire is falling apart in India when you start getting repeat names. Almost everyone after him was named either Raja Raja, Rajendra, Rajadhiraja, or Kotulunga. So let it be a lesson, kids. If you want your empires to last long, don't name your kid after your grandfather. Eventually, new kingdoms like Hosalya and old foes like the Pandyas re-emerged, and they attacked and enslaved the once mighty Cholas to their capital, just like the Cholas had done to the Pandyas before them. I would like to get into the reasons why empires fall, using the Chola Empire as an example. From the last few videos, we can see that everyone living in the Tamil country or any area outside of the area closest to Tanjavur, those people were not exactly enthused about being conquered by the Cholas. Almost every area that they took resisted their rule. Cholas themselves brought the hammer of cruelty to everyone that resisted. The moment someone would break away from them, the Cholas would reconquer them. And when they lost the treasure to reconquer land, they started giving up their dream of reconquest, and the empire fell apart. They usually raised that treasure through taxes or conquest or trade. The emperor works to enrich himself and the closest group of people around. This ends up enriching the capital city and the core area around it. The rest of the empire is to raise money through taxes or exports. The Chola Empire wanted to monopolize all trades that went through the southern Indian ports. At this point, most trade in the world happened in between China and the west, or India and the west, or India and China. And most of that trade made a stop at one point or the other at southern India. The other place they would usually stop would be Sri Lanka, and the other place where they had to go through no matter what was the Srivijaya Empire, which were all under Chola sphere of influence at one point or the other. This made them the lord of the coasts, as just being able to provide safe harbor and safe passage to these ships brought in a lot of treasure. The Vengi region of this empire, or modern day Andhra Pradesh, was the breadbasket of the empire, being one of the most productive lands in India. And it was only after conquering them or working with them that Chola Empire became one of the greatest empires in the history of India. That's how empires usually function. Each region conquered provides something new to the core of the empire, whether it be new resources or it be access to better trades. And it's through these trades and taxes that these empires raise their treasure. That treasure then is used to raise armies and pay for their salaries, and particularly in India, pay priests or give them land or patronize temples, so that a culture builds that makes the commoners accept their new overlords. Because the priest class had great influence over the average people, and if you had curried their favor, it was unlikely that there would be any rebellion. If you have seen CGP Gray's video called Rules for Rulers, you would know that you need to appease certain keys or certain key people in the empire to retain power. In most empires and dictatorships, that's the military. In ancient India, this usually included priests, as they defined the culture of the people. And in a lot of empires, especially in India, it also included traders, as they brought in the treasure. This is why you might see Hindu kings patronizing not just Hindu priests and temples, but also Jain monks and Buddhist monks and their monasteries and temples. Most of the Chola Empire's conquests were done to make sure that the traders got what they wanted. So maybe during this time, in South India at least, traders were the major key to power. Even farmers were appeased to a certain degree through building of canals and infrastructures, as they were the ones who provided the food to the empire. So in a way, the empire kind of had to take care of its people in order to avoid rebellion. The Chola Empire had a lot of rebellions throughout its many corners of the empire. This meant that there was something wrong with the way they treated their people. For example, the smaller kingdoms that preceded it and came after it were a lot more open to religious diversity than the Chola Empire. The Cholas shut down many Buddhist monasteries, and they converted many Vaishnavites, or followers of Vishnu, into Shaivites, the followers of Shiva, which they themselves were. One of the major examples of this was when Raja Chola conquered Sri Lanka, and he destroyed many Buddhist monasteries and built a Shiva temple at the center of it all. This made people of the many faiths of India not support them, and the brutality that they exhibited in their conquests left a sour taste in the mouths of the survivors. On top of that, many kingdoms that they conquered, like the Pandyas and the Cheras, were about as prideful as them, with as long as history and as rich a culture. The only way that the Cholas were able to hold on to the power for as long as they did was only through their ridiculous military might. The moment it became financially and militarily impossible to subjugate a land, Chola Empire lost that particular piece of land. And so eventually they didn't have enough treasure to fund a military to protect themselves and their core land against the rising power of the imperial Pandyas. That is how the Cholas fell. Overall, that's how a lot of empires in India rose and fell. Anyway, in the next episode, I'm thinking of changing things up a little. See you next time.